welcome Ariane firstly, and all the guests who have tuned into this session of What's the Plan. That's quite a task, Ariane, for the Tipai Wildlife Resort that you've done, and it's exceptional on many fronts. So I'd like to begin by asking you a little bit about how you got here. Your education is in art and design. You run a successful product design venture. You also practice architecture. I also read you have a degree in economics. So
Yes.
how do these worlds unite? And if you could share a little bit of the backstory.
And it's an interesting combination because economics kind of gives you a real value of things, and it's always helped me with my design. It's helped me with analyzing things. It's helped me with R&D on many fronts. I think economics was an extremely good grounding for me. So yeah, it's worked well, the design and the economics.
So, Tipai, you mentioned that you were not looking really at building a resort, but you were sustaining a community.
Yes.
You could take us really what has been the intent behind Tipai and how does that play out?
The intent was not mine. The intent started with the owner of Tipai and Keyur, and Keyur had a very clear vision. So he came to me one day and said, you know what, I've kind of want to digress into something else, and I want to build wildlife resorts. I want to build 20 wildlife resorts. So let's start with the first one. So we actually started looking at land together. So we looked at land at Tipeshwar, and we looked at land at a couple of other places. Anyway, so this land just fell in our lap, and it was like an amazing 35-acre property. And the Keyur was kind of retired from what he was doing, and he wanted to now give back something to the community. He did not believe in giving donations or doing things like this. He actually wanted to do something which would help an entire community. And so we figured that if we want to build these wildlife resorts, we do it in a way that is extremely local, and by doing that, it was his philosophy. So I just took that whole thing in what he wanted. His brief was extreme localization. That's it. This is whatever we do, it has to be extreme localization. And that was my brief. Then he said, whatever you want. So yeah, so that's how we started, and we started researching a lot around that area. So this is Yavatmal region, and there is not much happening there, but we researched a lot in terms of trying to find local techniques, trying to find something which stood out. We came across almost immediately was a town called Varga. And Varga is a Gandhian town which has almost 11 Gandhian institutes there. From these institutes vary. So one institute is just textile and khadi. Then one institute is just paper. Then they have another institute called Institute of Village Sciences, where that institute specializes in traditional techniques for sanitization, for construction, and things like that. And so we started talking to these institutes, going there, meeting with them, understanding what they are doing, and then trying to see how we could incorporate what all they are doing into our design. And that's how we actually started. And also in terms of construction, we were very sure that we didn't really want to use too much concrete, and didn't want to get materials and carry materials back from 100, 200, 300 kilometers away to build things. So the obvious choice was at that point of time was try and build off the land, and that obvious choice became rammed earth, because that's the one thing you can do easily off the land. So yeah, it was a lot of research, a lot of thought before we even started designing the project. So this is that was the thought basically by doing extreme localization.
So also the architecture, really, the final expression that has been delivered, it's not stylistic or does not adhere to any kind of set norms. It seems to be an organic or an evolutionary expression. Could you take us through what was that like? I mean, how did you perceive the architecture to finally represent itself in this landscape?
So again, the research brought us to, say, this village science institute, and they had developed these molds 35 years back. Okay, the villas have these molds. Yeah, so this is a product of their research, which they have done about 35 years back, and this was the product for the villages over there, where the people were able to make their own kavelus, that is terracotta tiles, which are conical tiles. And so you see these tiles in the corner there. Yeah, these conical tiles. So each person is able to make this themselves and then make roofs or walls out of this. And this is a very cheap construction. It's a very cost-effective construction, especially for people in the villages. So this was an alternate, a more solid construction instead of using, hay on the roof and things like that. And when we saw this technique, we immediately wanted to use it. So this was like, we knew we are doing the walls, right? So that was that. We knew we were doing rammed earths. So Volt has restrictions that we could only do walls of a certain height, a certain width, a certain length. So we started from the roof, the designing. We didn't, start from the plan. We actually started with the roof, worked with the structural designer to see what we can do in terms of sizes of these walls, and then came down to a plan and started deciding, on what kind of layouts will work. So it's actually the wall that determined the architecture for this whole project, at least for the villas that we did.
And how big is really the build structure? How big is it? How many buildings do you have? Are they 8 or 10 buildings interconnected, or how does it?
We have about 19 villas. We have 15 villas, which is like we call them our forest villas, and they are quite large actually. With the veranda, the built-up area is about 1,700 square feet, and then we have our pool residence villas, and we just have 4 of those, and they have a natural plunge pool actually. The pool pavilion villas, we call them.
So essentially the typology of each of these villas remain the same with these vaulted roofs, and that's what's been kind of
yes.
organized not throughout the estate. I'm sure it's a certain area of the estate which has the built form, and then the rest of it is left with permaculture for it to sustain as a landscape.
Yeah, so we don't have much built up, considering the property size. Say we have like a 35-acre property. Total built up is not more than 5,000 square meters.
Okay, all right.
So
also, in terms of this association with this Institute of Village Sciences, did they bring about, so the technique they brought about with, of course, was rammed earth?
Gave them the whole project. We didn't.
Okay, as a partnership to kind of look at the build form and how that could be translated using vernacular and traditional building techniques. Yes. So rammed earth was one of them. So could you take, and of course you have biopools as another area. Could you take us through this idea of these biopools and how did they emerge? I believe they are chemical free pools that are there, and how has that experience been in terms of building them and also sustaining the water quality and things like that?
It's an experiment. It's still an ongoing experiment. So I think, I again did a lot of research about pools, and I was very, I just needed something that looked natural here. I was not very, uh, the idea of putting blue tiled pools over here just did not appeal to me. It was so again, through research, I realized that there is a way of doing natural pools, and people outside India are now doing a lot of natural pools, shifting away from chlorine pools. And natural pools are made to look like ponds, not necessarily swimming pools. But here, that would have been a stretch to make it look like a pond, because I think most people are uncomfortable with the idea of jumping into a pond. I think even this people, I think 50% of the people who will visit this place will question what we have done in terms of a swimming pool, because they think a swimming pool has to be blue water, right? So the natural pool base essentially is that the filtration happens through plants in the same area. So half of the pool is like a swimmable area, and the balance 50% is we add stones and sand and plants and everything. So there is a natural filtration that's happening within the pool through pumps and even air pumps and things like that. And we kind of use now, we are using neem products to keep away frogs and tadpoles. What we realized initially was that without we did not add neem. We just started doing the neem thing because there were a lot of tadpoles. Some people were getting a little freaked out and were not ready to swim in the pool with tadpoles and frogs around. So we've now started this whole neem extract thing, and we maintain the pool with neem.
So it's for the most part, it's a stable water body that you've created, and it has some quality in terms of hygiene and cleanliness, etc. With water, does that need to be tested? I'm sure as a resort you would need to have that to a particular standard.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
great.
We do all that. And the pool is also like a tiled pool, the pool area.
Okay. So it does have some tiles, the pool area itself, or the pool. So the pool area is tiled, it's just the filtration part with the water plants, etc. That's the part that remains untiled and more natural. Okay. And rammed earth, how was it? How was the experience like with experimenting with soils and different types of soils? I would imagine there's some research that goes into what's available there as a soil type as well. Could you take us through that experience in terms of using it? I'm assuming you had not used it rammed earth before in a project. So
no,
how was that?
Yeah. So the soil. So here also we initially started working with. Started talking to a couple of institutes here in Gujarat to do rammed earth. And I think they came to our site and they kind of said that, oh, this is not workable, and the soil, you need to get soil from Latur and here and there and fly ash and things. And I was not very happy about that. I said, again, this is, what is the point of doing rammed earth and getting soil from 100 kilometers away? So I started looking for more options. And we came across this young man who is an architect based in Bangalore, who kind of specialized in rammed earth work. And so we called him, and then he picked up the soil himself and took it to Bangalore for testing, and then came back very excited that we can do the rammed earth using the soil from the property. And so we have to have additions like lime and a couple of other things. We need to get a little soil from not soil, I would say, but
Additives.
Which also we had a lot on our site. So and a little cement mixture, because obviously this being a resort and this being a hotel, we have to adhere to certain structural standards. So we have to say normally rammed earth will have about 4 or 5% cement in it. We had to add a little extra, otherwise the structural engineer was not ready to sign off on it. So yeah, so he came, he made samples, and then the question was, how do we build them? Who will come and build these walls? And then he said, okay, I'll stay here and start training everybody. And he trained the villages. So we have a village called Maharashtra, which is literally at our foot of the property. It's like 300 meters from us, the entire village. And I think we got most of the people from the village to work on our property, whether it was plantation, whether it was construction, at all different levels. So we trained about 15 guys to do Ramdas work, and they built the whole property, the entire property, these 15 guys. And Atas kind of supervised it. So it was great.
So also stone masonry, I think
And also we did
all of it
locally.
was harvested. Yeah.
Yeah, and the stone also came locally from around us, from fields and things like that. Yeah.
So some of the other interesting things in this project are these pavilions with these steel trusses that are built.
Yes.
This is a very kind of organic structural system that's been created. Could you take us through this? And
So I think I sent you a picture of a sketch of this building.
yeah, unfortunately, I don't have it on the presentation, but you had. I think it's, if you could walk us through this, the idea.
Here, this spot that we had picked, basically, so this is my main structure and main building, which has everything, all the services here, from the kitchen to the housekeeping to the laundry to everything. So this was going to be the main restaurant area, bar area, and obviously we needed a lot of space. And I had picked this location. I knew exactly that this is the location where it would be. And I think for the amount of space I needed, I obviously needed to cover a large piece of land. And the point A to point B, there was a drop of almost 20 feet, 30 feet, naturally in the topography. And so it was a very easy, I really actually didn't put any thought into the design. I just knew that following the topography, we need to do, these kind of levels. And on the topmost level, when you stand, you have a view of the horizon and the mountains, and that you did not want to let go. And so obviously the roof you could not go down 3 levels, and we had to maintain the roof at that height so that the view is not obstructed. So these were basic things which we had to take care of. The site told us what to do. The site and the surroundings told us how to build, and we just followed that. There was a language we needed to follow. And because it was becoming such a big structure then, because the roof being at the first level, the roof is almost 45 feet high, 50 feet high, so then it could not be very heavy, and I didn't want walls, and, so how do you create a space which is light? And so I had all these ideas in my head that I'll do a plantation around it, envelope it with bamboos and things like that. So then these forms started coming naturally, with the trusses. So that is why they're very random forms and random branches. So eventually my bamboos have already grown about 20, 25 feet in some places. I think by next year, you will not see this building from anywhere, and the trusses and everything will just blend with the bamboo. That was the thought, so it's just something which gets submerged with its surroundings. We don't want it to, stand out. That is the whole thing, and be a big building standing out and just not working with the environment. That's the various thought processes I have.
So we talked about the dome tile roofing system, these vaulted ceilings, but there also is these flat roofs. Is the idea the same, or is this some kind of screen?
If you can go back to a picture of this villa has a bathroom. This one, but you can't see the roof here.
Yeah.
But obviously, other than the vault, we needed to create other areas also, right? So we needed to create flat roofs. So this was an experiment these are the forest, these are the premium villas, that is the pool residence villas. But in the forest villas, I needed to create flat roofs, and I was not sure what I was going to do. We again had a lot of research, a lot of pillar slabs and this and that and everything, but I still wanted to stick to the material that we were already using, that is the conical tiles. So then I asked those guys there at the Village Institute if they had kind of used those conical tiles in a flat manner. And they had made one sample, literally one sample of 6 feet by 2 feet somewhere in their property. They showed that to me, and I just fell in love with the texture. And anyways, I said, "This is it. We are doing this. There is no question of doing anything else." And so it was again then a lot of back and forth with the structural engineer to find a way to make this happen. Nobody was sure whether it would hold, and so there were a lot of questions. And anyway, so we again did the Village Science only executed all the flat roofs with the conical tiles, and structurally we made sure that they hold, the flat roof holds. Now, by the time we came here building the premium villas, the Village Science Institute was giving us a tough time. They would run out of tiles, and there would be monsoon, it would be raining. Then they said you have to wait for 2 months, you have to wait for 4 months. It was a tough process. Working with them was a very tough process. So finally I lost it, and I said, that's it. I don't want any more of your tiles, and I'm going to find another material to use for these 4 villas. There are only 4. So, and that's what we got this. There was a local supplier over there, very close to the site, who had these filler tiles. So I just experimented with this and it kind of worked out. Yeah. So this was an alternate.
So this is a clay tile, and above it sits a
hollow filler tile. It's a hollow tile. It's about 3 inches thick, and it's hollow. So it's handmade terracotta.
And you then need to feed concrete or cement slurry or some kind of strengthening or binder, etc., within the tile system.
We do it on the top. So what we do is we put a shuttering at the bottom. And over the shuttering, you arrange these tiles, and between each tile you leave about 2 inches space, and then you do a very basic metal jali. A structural metal, and then pour the cement over it.
Okay.
And that's the slurry you see, the residue cement that kind of comes at the bottom. So it's a very simple structure. And then just to make sure that the waterproof, it's intact in terms of leakages and all, we do a layer of China mosaic over it.
Nice. And also the flooring, these are tiles that were again sourced locally.
No, these are just flooring terracotta tiles, not made locally, but made about 2 hours away from where we are. And I think this was the most amazing material I bought. I think most of the site I've used this, swimming pool areas, and everywhere other than the villas, I've just used this material, and it's very hardy and just better to look at every day. The more we use it, it starts shining. It's better, and it's an amazing. Yeah.
Nice. And about water, I would imagine that must have been a big challenge in this area. So could you take us through some of how did you deal with water, and what kind of solutions, etc., that were derived in terms of managing this resource?
So I'd heard horror stories about Yavatmal, basically being that they have a lot of drought, and there's maximum amount of suicides in Yavatmal in India because they don't have water, the farmers kill themselves, and there's always going to be an issue of water. So from day one, my biggest concern was water. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to run this resort if we run out of water? And obviously, we had again this that was a whole different research for me in terms of how so permaculture is what I had read about a while back, and it's always fascinated me. And then I was presented with this big 35-acre land, and I knew immediately, that we need to do something which is sustainable on this land. And again, did a lot of research, and then I found the right person to help me with it, a guy called Parag from Goa, who is very passionate about permaculture. So the basic concept of permaculture is that whether it's a small 1 acre piece of land or a 30 acres, the idea is that you try and live off that land, whether it's water, whether it's electricity, whether it's food, whether you build there, everything has to happen off that land. So you should be totally sustainable and independent, and you don't really need to go out to get anything. So that was the basic concept, and that's what we wanted to do. So I was like, okay, we can do this. We have 35 acres, so we can build our food forests over here. We can get our own water over here. We can get our own electricity over here. So how do we do it? Water being the primary thing. So we started by digging a well. We had fantastic water on the property in terms of the well. And we realized, okay, this well, we just experimented with one well to start with for a year to see what happened in the well and how much water would fill up. And so it worked. The well worked. And so we said, okay, if this well works, this well is not going to sustain a property like ours, like the 19 villa property with a massive kitchen. So we had a tapering land, so like I said, it was tapering 30 feet. So we had a lot of water to collect from. So we said, let's start collect. We had a lot of ravines, like nalas in the property. So we knew that we could collect a lot of water through the nalas. So that was the next thing, was to try and find ways to collect water and make smaller reservoirs all through the property. So that was the second step. The third step was actually collecting the rainwater through all the buildings that we built. And it wasn't planned, but one fine day we realized that, oh, you know what, let's just, because it's such a spread out property, literally our villas are spread out. The pipelines that we've done over here run kilometers and kilometers. So it made sense to try and make an individual tank for each villa and let each villa be independent. So we collected rainwater of each villa. So each villa has about a 75,000 liter tank, which I'm hoping will last one season. We made calculations of abstract calculations of water usage, of how much if the villa is full 200 days a year, what will be the water requirement and things like that, and came up with this 75,000 liter tank and hope that works. So like that, we just started building tanks everywhere. And we are now at the point where we are able to collect about 25 lakh liter water on our property, minus the rest.
That has been a real challenge of managing water.
Yeah. Secondly, the property itself was a teak plantation. We needed to, break that, because over here they do a lot of teak farming in these areas. It's cash crop, right? So we had about 2,000 teak trees on the property, and maybe 2 neem trees, 1 maua tree, 1 some other tree, and some other tree. Like you could count the amount of other trees that we had on the property were like 10 or 15 trees. Everything else was teak. So now if you want to do permaculture, you want to create a food forest, you have to develop this whole ecosystem within your property to make it work, right? So then it's a drought area. Then you can't have plants which are going to take a lot of water. You can't be watering plants 24/7. So that's where Parag came in, and he did a lot of research to see what are the native trees, what is available locally. We found out that no nursery, even the government nursery did not sell native trees. They only sold teak trees. So we had to research and find out in India where actual native trees were available. And we only found one place in India, in Pune. There is an amazing nursery which sells any tree you can think of, a native local Indian tree from forest. So we started buying trees from them, buying trees which didn't require water. Also, we needed to make manure, we had to create biomasses, we had to find ways of retaining water in the property to help these trees grow after 2 or 3 years. So we did a lot of work on the property. We created trenches, we created biomasses, we put biomasses in the trenches to make the soil richer. Then we planted the trees, filled up the trenches. So this we did for almost 2 years. We planted about 5,000 different trees for 2 years, just trying to get the ecosystem right. And we didn't want to do landscaping. I mean, I was very clear that this has to remain a jungle. So we've done landscaping. I mean, but we've not put fancy Erica palms or things like that. We've just gone ahead and researched and put a lot of different kinds of grasses and, things like that to make it as natural as possible. So the idea, and we planted a lot of fruit trees, we're doing a lot of vegetables now. So we're getting to a point where in another year or maybe two, we will be completely efficient and self-sufficient in terms of food. I hope, fingers crossed, but yeah, we work very hard to get there.
So in terms of craft, I know that's a big passion for you, and also a venture that you do. How has that been integrated in the project in various capacities? I think textiles you mentioned. Could you take us through some of those?
So the textiles, like I said, we found this amazing Khadi institute called Magan Khadi in Varga. And they did things we'd never seen before. So they specialize in something called the leaf print. So they do leaf blocks, which I'd never seen before. They actually use the leaves to create. They don't have a block, but they use leaves to print. And the leaf is the block. So that was very exciting. And I mean, in a place like this, you immediately knew that this will work. So we created our own designs. And I have a textile designer who joined the project. And she kind of created, together with me, created all the designs for the project. Everything was designed at our office and then executed by Magan Khadi in terms of manufacturing the cloth. And Magan Khadi again worked with us, worked for me because they were also farm to table. So they're completely organic. A, B, that they work directly with their farmers. They procure the cotton and do everything, from scratch to a finished product, which was very exciting. And the quality of their textiles was unbelievable. I've never seen cotton like this anywhere, ever. I mean, even now I'm yet to find someone who makes such good cotton. So it worked out very well. So everything on our property has been procured from them, from bed covers to cushion covers to bathrobes, whatever, to hand napkins, everything that we could get from them, we got. And
on the curtains are the leaf prints that you talked about?
Yes.
And your lights, etc., are also again
we divided again. So see, everything when it came to the interiors. I knew, I'm being an Indian designer myself, having an Indian brand myself, I was very sure that I wanted to work with similar Indian brands. I would not want to go to Bali or would not want to go to China or would not want to go to Italy to get anything. We needed to have everything made in India, everything handmade over here. It was very clear. So, and because of this and that, and because of my exposure, I was in contact with like 50, 20 different designers in different mediums. So I started calling them all up. This is the project. How do you want to contribute? What do you want to do? What can you do? So like that, I think I worked with 10, 15 different brands from lights to to Jaipur, so carpets to everything. So we worked with Jenny Pinto. She designed these lights. So we gave her. I mean, I went and met her and gave her a brief, and because Maua is a very local thing here, so she took Maua as a concept, and she kind of designed these lights based on Maua flowers. Um, so all the villa lighting was done by Jenny and Orja lights. Some of these lights were done by Vicar Story. Here also, I kind of immediately knew what I wanted in terms of lights, and so I called Priyanka up and I asked her, okay, could you design these lights for me? And she was really excited, and yeah, so she made all these lights here. Things we tied up with, we designed all the rugs, and then I love Jaipur rugs and the way they work and their philosophies. So Jaipur rugs manufactured all the rugs for us. So like that, I mean, I just got all brands, Indian designers, everything handmade. We worked with Kishkinda Trust to get all the baskets and things like that for the entire property. Even table mats, Kishkinda Trust got for us in banana fiber. I don't think there is anything that is not handmade over here. If I look at it, even the fabrics for the sofas were designed by Toile Indian, Akila, and they're also an amazing brand who designs and their fabrics and gets them printed. So she kind of did all that for us. So all the sofa fabrics came from her. And I know somebody just recently came to the property editor for a design magazine, and she was saying that it's just so Indian. The Indianness in this property stands out, and that's what we wanted. And I'm glad that people see it. It's just everything is, I don't know, if people are aware of the brands, they'll be able to see that, this belongs to this brand and this thing. That's what's nice. We're celebrating Indianness, we're celebrating Indian design, we're celebrating Indian designers, and it is great working with all of them.
How has the experience been? Rural environment, etc. You touched upon it briefly. A very challenging.
Very challenging. Very challenging. It was.
Now you enter a new phase of hospitality in the rural environment. I'm sure the owners will also, that will be a completely new set of challenges. How do you create not only a bespoke environment, but also a bespoke experience for the guests?
We have created it. We are there. We started, recruiting staff, and about 60 people on the property are from the local villages there. From housekeeping team to horticulture team to our kitchen teams, and they're all trained and they're doing a fabulous job. So
well on its way to the next iteration of such a project. Is work on that already started, or it's still in the planning stage?
Talking about it, we have been planning on starting work at Kanha. We had acquired property in Kanha, but it's a little saturated there, so we're in two minds about what we want to do.
Incidentally, what kind of wildlife does this tract of land attract?
It's got a lot of tigers. We've got about, now they say 29 tigers, and in fact we have tigers on our property in peak summer.
But that must be in a much larger area, right? The tiger.
They're walking through our property. We don't have any. We are not allowed any fencing or anything, and we are right.
Okay.
We are right at, so part of our entire property is at the buffer. In boundary with the buffer zone. So that's the regular route. So we have a couple of villas who have regular tiger visits happening, because there are nice little water bodies for them. So that's the idea. So we've had them. Yeah.
And you also spoke about partnering with these other brands. I think over here there are some others that you have partnered with. So the idea ecosystem.
So even the basins, like I know I can't make my own sanitary ware, and I can't make my own faucets, which I would have loved to. And I found much later someone who's actually making bamboo faucets now, and that happened very late. It was too late to change that. But so even the basins, I kind of talked to curators of clay, Rohit. I said, Rohit, you know what? I want handmade basins. And he said, okay. So he made about 70, 80 basins. And it took him 2 years to make all these basins. But yeah, uh, the bamboo, the water hyacinth stuff that you see obviously came from Kishkinda Trust. These bottles that you see came from curators of clay. We tied up with the forest essentials to supply us all the toiletries. We tied up with someone like Paul and Mike, who make some fabulous chocolates to give us, co-branding with chocolates, again organic. Tied up with another woman who makes fabulous teas, co-branded that. She made specialties here. So we're trying to do different things, have different experiences, have like the whole kind of tea lounge and have a tea experience. Try to make teas off our property, make it exciting. Oh, so yeah, it's so many different brands that we worked at. Even the toilet, the basic amenities is all bamboo. We tied up with a person who has a company called Namaste Bamboo, and they make the most fabulous bamboo products. So we kind of got everything from them for the amenities. So yeah, we try to stay true in every possible way we can to being organic, to being natural.
Now, you have, I think this is something that has been a first for you, and like many other things, there are different threads that emerge from your journey, from economics to interiors to product design, and now this experience with complete, I cannot say architecture, but it's creating an entire environment which safeguards everything. So how do you really see this impacting your own journey, and is this the kind of work that now interests you more, possibly to attempt more of such projects in the future?
Definitely. I'm like, I hope to get more projects like this. Even if it's one project in 3 years, I'm fine, because this is a very, very, how would I say, there's so much involvement at so many different levels that it takes up an entire day of yours. The kind of customization that we do here for this kind of project. I'm most happy to do projects like this. I'm not the kind of person, I'm not a commercial person where I need 50 projects a year. I'm very happy with my this and that and the way that's doing. And so I'm happy to do one or two good projects like this. And I hope to get, it would be lovely to build more resorts with different techniques, looking at the location and, and different challenges. And I think this has been one of my it is the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done in my life. So, yeah.
And also, I think from an Indian context, it really is a first. A project like this for the hospitality, wildlife area. There have been others in the past, but something which is so complete and holistic in its intent and, of course, as a final product delivered is truly remarkable. So, many congratulations. It's a beautiful project, and it's benchmarks on many levels. So, excellent work done. And thank you for taking the time to chat with us. It's been truly wonderful, and I look forward to seeing much more of your work in the very near future.
Thank you. Lovely chatting with you.